Gamers, you doing good? I hope so, because I'm ready to dish out some positivity and creative criticism all at the same time. By the way, sorry for not uploading for, a whole week. School has been pretty rough, but hey, whatever, let's get on to it. Get ready, because Deathloop may just be put within your crosshairs, and if it wasn't already, or if you're looking for reaffirmation, you'll find that here too.
Break the loop.
Innovation of the medium is what defines a classic from a passerby, a Halo 2 to an Ace Combat 5, a Shadow of the Colossus to a Madden NFL 6, when something that has never been done before is. Or the more impressive to me when something that has been done before is done again, but in a different way that only serves to benefit the entire sub and main genre as a whole. Deathloop, for me, falls into this category. We have seen blanking mini-games now, including Arcane's most prolific title, Dishonored, but Deathloop does it, to me, better, which is a bold claim, I know. We have seen the roguelike genre become the next digital sliced bread from the likes of Dead Cells and Hades, but Deathloop does it better. I know, those are fighting words, whatever, but I'm serious about this, okay? I love both those games to death, so there's no need for harsh words, unless it's in the comments, of course. This game is an instant classic, and I'm not afraid to admit it. Just to really make my point, I place this game up on the shelf with Nier, with Jak and Daxter, Ratchet & Clank games I grew up with, Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monsters. Yeah, I know. It has permission to enter and exit the house freely. It even has permission to take the family car. It is that good. I'm being serious. Combat, just like Arcane's other stuff, is responsive and allows for player expression. Graphics, better than real life, even on performance settings. And comedy? Gold. I'm not even joking about that. It is actually genuinely funny. And story? Pretty good, but the substance lies in the character development. And the music? Oh my god, there's so many bangers that I need more than 4 hands to count them all. You get the point. Now, every good game review video gives you a little rundown on the game and conversation, so time for a little synopsis. Do not worry, no spoilers here. You're Cole Devon, an ex-head of security for the Eon Project, a project which is home to the Eternalist, a fanatical futurist cult hell-bent on discovering enlightenment from the anomalous time rift dubbed the Anomaly at Black Reef, an island with more than a little bit of conspiracy hidden below the facade of a fishing village. You discover very early on that Colt defected from Eon and is now trying his everything to break the one-day loop that occurs at every 12 a.m. You realize that in order to sever the loop, you must execute all 8 visionaries in one day, all while being hunted by Juliana, a crafty but slightly dumb AI, or player-controlled rival to Colt, who just happens to be, well, one of your 8 targets. To kill each visionary, you must learn their schedule, in and out, what makes them tick, and how effective they are in combat, along with what proper tools you should be used to make the job possible. Knowledge is king in Deathloop. With every loop, unless you're in the endgame, you'll be hard-pressed to not learn something new by the end of the day, and that's where the replayability lies. This game is seriously just as much about being a stone-cold murder machine as it is being a detective who misses no details and overturns every rock within a 10-square-mile radius. This game makes you feel like a secret agent, through and through. The mid-20th century neo-jazz influence is ever so tangible as you play. You'll never want to slow down when you start to hear the most sexy of saxophone solos play away as you murder the same person you killed yesterday. It's truly cathartic in how you're able to murder in this game. There are numerous ways to get your killing done, not to the extent of Dishonored or even Dishonored 2, but you can tell Arcane was focused on making this game have highly replayable areas with oodles of secrets to uncover versus making them only fun to navigate maybe 5 times or so. I'm not even hyperbolizing here either. Even after about 20 hours of playtime, not one of the 4 areas became stale or even an eye roller to go back to, and that's hard to do. Now, of course, I do have my own preferences on which maps are my favorite, but thanks to the clever daylight system, every area has its moment to shine. So, as stated in that little synopsis, Black Reef is inside what the visionaries call the Anomaly, which makes the events of every day along with everyone's memories reset, except for Colt, Juliana, and 2 more people who I won't mention, back to where they started. And just like with real life, things happen all around you, constantly, and so, every area has 4 different versions of itself for each time of day, and you're forced to visit every rendition of them to uncover clues onto how you can kill all 8 visionaries in one day. Quick example, 2 visionaries are breaking company code by getting together in their secret meetup spot. Easy enough until you find out that the only way you can get inside that spot is with a very cryptic passcode that is pretty much impossible to crack, even if you're there for an hour, believe me, because I may have just did that. Now, mind you, all that comes after numerous loops and having already killed both of them normally and rummaging through their stuff, finding more than you thought you needed to know about them too. You venture through loop after loop, day in one area, night in another, afternoon in this one, and noon in that one, until you finally piece together everything together and discover the code was written on the wall, but not in the way you expect, to avoid spoilers of course. Regardless, you see what I'm getting at? I went through maybe 8% of the game right there, explaining how you murder 2 people at once. That is Deathloop at its core. You are a detective, a temporal investigator. You delve into the backstory, personal relationships, and even preferred alcohol type of these 8 visionaries, all with one goal in hand, to break that damn loop. Yeah, shit's pretty cool. And I'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who can't find enjoyment in at least one aspect of this game. Now, yes, killing is your only option, which can be a negative for some, but I'm sure some will change their minds real quick once they get a feel for the weaponry. The cast of guns may be small, but man, are they all stars. Not including the 4 legendary weapons, you have 2 shotguns, 2 handguns, 1 SMG, 1 LMG, 1 scopeless rifle, and a nail gun. The 4 legendary weapons are akimbo pistols that morph into a burst fire SMG, a machine pistol that can reload while you fire, an anti-material rifle, and, my personal favorite, a shotgun that fires slugs, which can be morphed to fire a buckshot. In all, 12 weapons, 14 if you include the transformations. Again, small, but these guns are really fun to play with, and all feel wholly unique to one another.
Okay, feels familiar. This place is mine.
There's a looter shooter aspect to soften the blow too. Weapon rarities range from white commons to rare blues to purple ultra rares to orange uniques or legendaries. Each rank determines how many trinkets you can equip on them, which we'll get into. Special perks that pretty much function as a free trinket, their paint job, as well as whether or not they jam on you. Yes, there's weapon jamming in a video game again. Not the first, of course, but god, I love this feature. It is so cool to be deep into a firefight only to try and fire and hear your trigger pull, but the gun remains stoic, which makes Colt usually swear. You have to go through a pretty lengthy animation as to unjam it, which completely changes the way the fight goes down. We're talking running for your life while you're being chased by a mob of angry Eternalists, and you're not a bullet sponge either, so it takes all of maybe 5 bullets to kill you. It's a really cool feature, and unfortunately, it is probably the most underutilized one in the game. The only kinds of guns that jam on you are white commons. So by even just the 3rd hour of gameplay, less if you're quick to learn, you already have infused an entire arsenal of blues that just don't jam at all. It's really a shame, honestly. I would have loved to see every kind of weapon jam, minus legendaries, and with each level of rarity came less of a chance to experience a jam. As mentioned before, the overall feel of the weapons are all unique to one another, thankfully. Recoil is ever present in this game. That makes me a very happy camper because newer titles like Call of Duty are taking strides on eliminating recoil for some stupid reason, at least in the somewhat recent Modern Warfare. The skill bracket becomes who shoots first 80% of the time. Thankfully, Deathloop alleviates my worries with an SMG that kicks like a mule and an LMG that could convince me my arms are being utilized to sell used cars. And hey you know what's cool? Magic. You know what's cooler? Time magic. For the first few hours, you don't even have any abilities at all, or what's called slabs in Deathloop. It's just you and your wits, which I think was a really smart move. You can get these slabs by killing specific visionaries who have their own respective ones, or Juliana, who seems to drop a random one upon death. These abilities are a little cookie cutter, coming from the people that made Dishonored. I mean, most of these exact concepts were in Dishonored 1 and 2, but that's okay because, like I said before, Deathloop does it really right. The first of many is Aether, which is literally just invisibility. Very, very useful to come in game. Next is Havoc, which functions as a stim or self-buff, where your damage taken is subtracted from your mana bar. Karnesis is a fancy way of saying you have the force, except only for against people. I thought I would use this a lot more, but the game requires you to lock on to enemies before you can initiate it, and that really minimizes creativity, especially since Cult is pretty squishy. Nexus functions exactly like Dishonored 2's Domino ability. For those who don't know, you basically just mark an enemy, mark his friend, mark his other friend, and then whatever you do to that one guy, or any of them, will happen to the others. Pretty simple. The only difference here is that you can actually throw an area of effect marking ball instead of individually marking targets. And of course, shift or blink, it doesn't really matter what you call it. It's teleport, and you teleport short distances, and that's it. Super useful for traversal and escapes. I had this in my build along with double jump the entire time. You should pretty much always have these two equipped if you want your weekly allowance not to be swiped. Now here's where things start to be different, however. You can equip upgrades to every ability by collecting the same one again and infusing it. These can pretty radically shift your powers for the better, no matter what, which I find commendable, since there's about 3 or 4 upgrades per ability. Pro tip: easily the best is the range extension and the ability to use it in mid-air for shift. You will never need anything else in the entire game, trust me. Now, when you play as Juliana, you have the Masquerade Slab, which allows you to copy the appearance of basic NPCs. Cult also has a specific slab that no one else has. It's called Respawn Game Mechanic, or Reprise, as it's titled, which allows you to die 3 times. Twice, you'll respawn, and the third will end your loop.
Hey Juliana, I infused myself a gun. Might infuse some trinkets. I might infuse a slab.
What's your point?
Then I figured out how to infuse things.
You think this is the first time? When did you crack that shit on day 7?
Then why'd I have to do it again?
It's got something to do with memory. Stuff you can't recall just sort of slips away.
Fuck! Why do you even like this place?
Because it is amazing! It's the only amazing place in an entire world of shit. You'll see it eventually.
All I see is me one step closer to breaking this fucking loop.
You always come around, Colt. And that's when the real fun begins.
I've mentioned infusing multiple times now. You must be wondering what I'm talking about. Well, thank you for asking, you viewer you. Each day reset, you lose all tangible things except for your clothes for some reason. This includes powers, upgrades, weapons, everything. Luckily, you can infuse them, which is obtained through a certain mean in which I won't give away because you need to experience it. It is really cool. But basically, you use a temporary current loop specific currency called Residuum to essentially buy the items in your inventory and permanently keep them. The way you get Residuum is by absorbing the essence of time-stuck anomalous objects, or by killing any of the visionaries, invading Juliana's included, and absorbing their essences after. You can also recover your own essence, should you die, and did not restart the loop. Another way to get Residuum is by selling the upgrades and weapons you don't want at the actual infused screen itself. Now, onto the very light RPG mechanics. Trinkets are found in the form of for your character, and for your weapons. They have the same rarities as the weapons do, white and blue and purple, no legendaries however. For guns, it's all pretty run-of-the-mill stuff. Less recoil, less spread, less damage drop-off, hurt opponents' mana and health, more ammo in the magazine, reload speed, simple stuff, but very important as they can dramatically shift how your weapon performs with your playstyle. Many purple weapons also come with a special perk which functions as a free 4th trinket. My personal favorite is the one that makes your bullets explode on contact. I think it's only available for the rapier, which is the scopeless rifle. Regardless, it's really fun, and if you do get it, you definitely should infuse it. Player trinkets function much in the same way, except Colt has 4 slots versus the weapons, which only have up to 3 for purple and orange rarities. Character trinkets are the bread and lightly salted butter fried in the skillet of your build. The absolute most important one, which is the first one you get, is double jump. Never take this off. Never. For no reason. No. Not one. No. If you gotta ask why, play more video games. Everything else, however, ranges from how much mana you have, to how much health you have, to how sneaky you are, to sprint speed, damage resistance, standard RPG stuff. You'll be able to personalize to your heart's content, within reason, of course.
You're not even trying.
Lady, I have no idea. Oh, shit, that's not good.
You just hurry up already.
It wouldn't be a next-gen game review without a section dedicated to the graphical fidelity. The Void engine has come a long way since its sort of rocky implementation in Dishonored 2, especially in the PC world. I played Deathloop on the PS5 on performance mode. and noted only one instance of a frame rate dipping below a smooth 60. And that was overlooking the most complex area visually in the game, Updom, from the highest building in that area. I also tried the ray tracing mode, which sets the game at 30 FPS. Yeah, it's pretty, but not at all worth chopping your frame rate in half for some slightly better lighting and definitely better reflections. It is also important to note that the game runs at an upscaled 4K, which is rendered natively at 1440p. Which really sucks because while sure, that negates the necessity for anti-aliasing, on a 1080p display, I'd much rather have it running at 60 with the ray tracing on, but hey, gotta flex 4K outputs nowadays, I guess. Regardless, however you like your tea, you can drink it knowing it's still going to be just as fun. It's only natural to talk about the audio conversation now that the graphics are done. Starting with the music, man, this game has so many bopping grooves to sink your ears into. There's just as much funk as there is jazz, which right properly sets Deathloop into the pseudo-future mid-19th century vibe. It's really intoxicating. There's unique world tracks for each area, with its own combat music. Nearly every visionary has their own world and combat track as well. My favorite is Alexis Dorsey, the party animal, and the saxophone in this goes so hard. I'll throw up some gameplay for you to enjoy along with it. Music may just be the most extremely important thing in video game making, and Deathloop definitely does not skimp, but a commonly misunderstood and its importance element to a game design is how the actual things in the game sound. The PS5 has this amazing little sound chip that makes for some genuinely lifelike 3D audio at extremely high fidelity, even over Bluetooth to your controller. It's something that a YouTube video will never be able to pay true homage to. The sounds of Deathloop were not rushed to the side during development, that is for sure. Each gun sounds individual and beefy. Even the little SMG.
Cheap-ass piece of shit!
Headshot sounds in games are the best. The most prolific that I can think of instantly is of course the dink from CSGO, and my favorite, the headsplosion from Gears of War. Deathloop has a different kind of headshot indicator. Instead of a staccato and alerting sound, it is this almost old horror movie-esque noise at first. I didn't really pay much mind to it, but man, when you quickly line up a shot with one of the longer range guns and run head from throat, it is pure bliss. Sound is the vibration of air in your ear, of course, so that naturally means we're going to cover the controller haptic feedback. Deathloop doesn't have my absolute favorite implementation of it, but it's still awesome given how cool the tech is. Basically, L2 has a little bit of friction factor applied, which makes aiming feel very deliberate. And the R2 has a nice bounce back when you fire your guns. You can feel each step Colt makes, like within the controller. It's really cool, and faint enough to where it becomes a very natural feeling minutes within playing. Now it is time to talk about the sense of humor Deathloop has. It's good, really good. The interactions between Colt and Juliana, especially Juliana, are just great. Her actress, Ozioma Akaka, completely nailed the conveyance of a sassy 20-something who is trying to peacefully enjoy eternity.
Hey, Colt. Fuck you.
Sure, your place of mine.
I've been to your place. It's filthy.
So that's a yes?
You don't really want to, believe me.
And Colt, voiced by Jason E. Kelly, hits every mark in conveying confusion, disbelief, alongside of some genuinely hilarious witty comebacks. They are just great together. You can tell they had some fun voice acting with each other. Which, speaking of that, Deathloop has a lot of voice lines. Obviously, I don't have any numbers, but I do know it's within the realm of a few thousand at the very least, probably peaking at around maybe 10,000 between every character interaction, main and side. Now, you need to remember, this is a roguelike, about time resetting, and you'll be hearing the same interactions between hostiles every time you visit the district, at the same time of day, that is.
What is it?
I said it was top secret.
Spill it, asshole.
Okay. The best place to see the fireworks is next to the stage.
That's it. That's all you've got? Please die.
What? It's gonna be spectacular.
I'm freezing my ass off looking for Colts. They're be fucking spectacular. We should take him alive and strap him to the fireworks. What? It's just a thought.
But fret not, because the writing team was on fire writing the dialogue. Colt and Juliana, of course, have the most interaction. Every single time you exit from your hidey hole, you get to be blessed with a progression of character relations and backstory of both Juliana and Colt. You may be blindsided by the few lines here and there. Don't worry, this game has quite a few twists and turns here and there. And Arcane does the right thing and caps off the final conversation dialogue with Juliana with her telling you that there's nothing else to talk about and just hangs up forever until you start a new game. This is, of course, after hundreds of visits to each area, but it is so much better than having vaguely topic relevant dialogue placed on a random number generator. Trust me, it is so much more natural. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a fair review without discussing some shortcomings. For what little issues Deathloop has that I can find, there are definitely some still present. For starters, the obvious, the gun selection is, well, good, but could have been extended easily to about 15 instead of the 12. There's no assault rifle, only one melee weapon, your machete, only one grenade type, and I think the 4 unique weapons are a little uninspired, except for the Heritage gun, which was the shotgun that can morph into firing slugs and buckshot, as well as the Strelok Verso, the dual pistols that transform into a burstfire SMG. Like I said, adding an assault rifle would dramatically help the roster. There's not really a gun in the game that I can call a happy medium. Everything has its drawbacks and positives, which, now, putting it into words makes a lot of sense, design-wise, but variety is the spice of life, and well, there's just not too much to go around. As for melee weapons, the machete is awesome, and you do some crazy gruesome things with it, but imagine how nice it would be if you had, say, I don't know, like a hammer, or something silly like a guitar. Anything to spice up the melee combat. This is less applicable to me, but I know others would like to have indicators on what's left and find in a given area. This of course makes everything feel like you're really putting in the detective work, but I feel like some of the less hardcore amongst us would find it nice to have some kind of maybe a meter or just number that tells you what's left to find about a visionary. And now I'd be closing the actually pretty short complaint section with the most important, the AI. The bots in this game are pretty damn dumb, and deaf too, especially deaf. Gunshots don't alert anyone who isn't just about maybe like 10 feet away, with one exception when you're using long-range weapons like the Sepulchra and the Rapier. They will notice those decently far away. Fights can end midway because you broke line of sight, or they'll just follow you to the end of the earth. It's a bit finicky. Look here, you can be invisible just beyond their detection cone, killing all of their friends with an unsilenced weapon, and they will just kind of stand there and scratch their head, waiting to be picked off. But beyond that, the AI is not the absolute worst, of course, and sometimes you want dumb bots because the game is just better for it. It's all preferences, really. They do make up for, in numbers at least. Usually you can actually get into a fight of like 40 of them, and like just in one courtyard, and it's a bit ridiculous, but it turns out to be pretty fun whenever you have to run away from them. But yeah, that wraps everything up for me. Deathloop is an amazing Game of the Year contender with some of the most compelling moment-to-moment player-driven gameplay you can find for players like me. Combat is tight, with a high skill ceiling. The light RPG mechanics make for allowance of player-build creativity, and the weapons, while small in quantity, do make up for in quality. The music will always get you grooving in your off-brand gamer chair with a little broken lean mechanism. The comedy will make you laugh, guaranteed, thanks to the 2 lead roles as chemistry. You'll never not uncover something new and interesting on each run, and it's all backed up with a really cool narrative with many twists and turns, weaved within the character development for both side and main cast. All in all, if you're lucky enough to own a PS5 or have a pretty decent PC, this is me in post, and I just figured out from Doom Eternal YouTuber extraordinaire Under the Mayo that Deathloop indeed runs like absolute horse penis on PC, even with a really good rig. So yeah, be really, really, really wary about that. The Void engine kind of sucks for PC. And I played Dishonored 2 on PC, and let me tell you, it is not well optimized. It's just the engine, man. They really need to get a new one, or something. But yeah, that's it. Back to it. Pick up Deathloop. It's $60 right now, and that's awesome, given that it is a PlayStation published title, and whenever they do that, you know it's usually going to be like a $70 or even $80 game, even if it's the same exact quality. I'm looking at you, Returnal. I do expect Xbox to be getting this come in the next few years, while the Sony exclusivity agreement wears out. I can't imagine Phil would pass up an opportunity like this. The game is actually just really good. But hey, that's me. I'm Just Sheen, and you actually finished my video. Wow, thank you. Please kindly like or dislike the video. And of course, leave a comment, because that's the #1 way to get me out there. If you bought the game because of my video, please come back and let me know. But yeah, thank you again. Have a good night.